There is an existential dread creeping up on modern Western society, which is damaging our sense of spirit, our sense of integrity, and our sense of self. And once planted in the mind of an individual, it spreads like a cancer and attacks the other aspects of the human condition, which are emotion, intellectuality, and physicality. Furthermore, it can lead one to question the very meaning of existence. This dread is the fruit of the philosophical branch of thought known as Sartrean existentialism. To be clear, there are two sects of existential philosophy within the same school of thought. One is the early sect, which was headed by philosophers like Fyodor Dostoevsky and Soren Kierkegaard. The other, which will be my main focus tonight, was popularized by philosophers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre in the 1940s, 50s, and early 1960s. Now, existentialism's primary focus is exploring the duality between objectivity, the idea that some things exist beyond our reality and are out of our control, such as truth, numbers, logic, and morality, and subjectivity, the idea that all ideas are a mere byproduct of the human experience and we can't truly know whether things objectively exist or not. With this said, the big differences between early and late existentialism stem from the differences in approach to thought and the conclusions reached from said thought. For example, early existentialists like Soren Kierkegaard believed that we couldn't escape our subjective self, and we were destined to endure all of life's hardships regardless of our desires. Yet, he did believe that life had purpose and that it was inherently valuable. To help clear any confusion, let's picture a light bulb. What Kierkegaard says is that we know the light bulb is there because we can perceive it. However, we only perceive it through our subjective and individual lens. In essence, what he's trying to say is that the purpose of the light bulb is objectively real, but subjectively experienced. On the other hand, Sartre and his contemporaries believed that life had no purpose. We create purpose. Essentially, what they mean is there was no light bulb, and that the light bulb was just a figment of our imagination. This is problematic because if we follow this line of thought, we are led to some very deep questions. If there is no purpose, no essence to life, why bother doing anything? Why follow rules? Why try and be competent and work hard? Why even think if there's nothing to think for nor towards? And lastly, what reason do we have to create a light bulb? What reason do we have to create purpose? When truly taken to heart, we can see how following such an existential philosophy can lead one down a road of nihilism and disdain, a road of despair. And lastly, when misused, we teenagers have a tendency to spew phrases reflective of this ideology without even knowing why we spew them. We often hear phrases like, go with the flow, and man, don't think about it so much. It's not that deep. and these phrases are reflective of the reluctance young people have to ask deep questions regarding some of life's most important ideas. And when I think as to why young people have this reluctance, I find myself staring into an abyss. And in this abyss, I find Camus, Sartre, and their contemporary existentialist philosophers staring right back at me. Now, the reason I believe young people tend to make these careless assertions is simply because it's easy not to care. However, we must note that being careless in this manner opens up the doors to the existential abyss, which in turn engulfs many of us almost whole. Now, as I say this, I bet some of you are wondering, how does this even happen? Well, to answer, I will point to a very famous existential author. In one of Albert Camus' most enduring works, The Myth of Sisyphus, Sisyphus, the main character, is condemned by the Greek gods to roll a giant boulder up the side of a seemingly never-ending mountain for all of eternity. And no matter how many times he's to make it to the mountaintop, he's to undertake this strenuous endeavor forever. Now, throughout the book, Camus implicitly urges us, the audience, to be like Sisyphus and imagine him happy. What this means is we should admit the solemn condemnation that we are faced with, that of lifelong pain, and try and fill our lives up with the purpose that we most desire to fill our lives up with, in spite of the meaninglessness of it all. Quite daunting, isn't it? However, in spite of this daunting philosophy, we mustn't lose hope for the future. But before we focus on working on the world around us, we must first look at ourselves and work on ourselves. We must step back and look at ourselves as individuals and subjects and properly ask some deep philosophical questions, chief of which is the following. Is there any meaning to life? Is it inherently valuable? To help give some insight on the possible answers that await us at the end of this existential question, allow us to consider the beginning of everything. According to many cosmologists and astrophysicists, the universe and everything in it came to be as a product of the Big Bang. If this does turn out to be true, that the universe came into existence, we can reason that it was created. And we know that things that are created have a purpose and they serve a certain function. Therefore, if the universe and everything within it, including life, was created, then the universe and everything within it, including life, is purposeful and meaningful. We can further this idea of a meaningful and functional universe through close contemplation when we look at the fact that when we consider the universe around us, we can see that there are natural laws that all living beings necessarily abide by, like logic, which is arguably the most integral law of any universe, any possible universe, because it's the basis by which all of reality springs out of like a rainbow. We could also argue that there are objective moral codes that we should abide by to not only better the integrity and well-being of ourselves, but of our families and our societies. With this said, the dismissal of such contentions is what I find to be the most damaging side effect of undertaking a Sartrean existential philosophy. To the aforementioned phrases of go with the flow and it's not that deep, I simply say, consider different perspectives, think critically, and open your mind up to new ideas while still maintaining your own. Yes, we can admit that throughout life we're going to endure many difficulties, but we must learn that through these difficulties, we have the opportunity to learn, love, and grow. Not only this, but we must grow to appreciate each other and ourselves, by which we will then closely consider what it means to exist. As I leave, I urge every single one of you here to truly consider what has been expressed here tonight, because with such contentions, we will finally be able to combat the existential dread that is plaguing our society and see substantial growth in our spiritual, emotional, and intellectual integrity. Thank you.